100 guests for a banquet, suddenly cancelled? The sound of despair in her voice rivaled the relentless downpour outside. At the entrance, Sarah, the owner, stood frozen in disbelief. "Derek, our resort might not make it anymore." Her trembling voice conveyed the gravity of the situation. Cedric, my boss, had promised a massive booking. But on the day of the event, it was abruptly cancelled. The woman before me looked shattered, fragile from the cruel turn of events. A fire of anger surged within me. That man, he never intended to hold a banquet in the first place. All the hard work of our staff, the large stock of supplies, it was all about to go to waste. In that moment, a plan began to form in my mind. Leave it to me. I'll figure something out. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. "Hello, this is an emergency. Please gather right away." To save this resort, my mission for justice was about to begin. My name is Derek, 32 years old. Until yesterday, I was stationed overseas, but now, here I stand on American soil. Breathing in the air of my hometown, it evoked a mix of nostalgia and a fresh sense of purpose. Manhattan, New York, surrounded by towering skyscrapers. Amid the glass and steel structures stood an eye-catching European-style building. Its robust exterior, over 100 years old, reflected a rich history and tradition. Standing before its grand entrance, my heart raced with both familiarity and tension. "I'm back," I whispered softly, letting the words dissolve into the crisp morning air. American Travel Solutions Incorporated. A giant in the travel industry, connecting people with everything from expansive resorts to budget accommodations. For over a century since its founding, this prestigious company has been a leader in American tourism. I was about to set foot in its headquarters for the first time in 5 years. As I stepped into the lobby, a wall of breathtaking photographs greeted me, showcasing scenic landscapes from across the states. Majestic mountains, charming streetscapes, and serene islands floating on azure seas. Delivering these experiences to people. That was our mission. Riding the elevator, I took a deep breath. I thought back to the day I received my overseas assignment 5 years ago. Back then, I was filled with both anxiety and anticipation. And now, with those experiences in hand, I was standing here once again. 14th floor, New Business Development Department. The mechanical voice announced as the doors slid open. Stepping into the department floor, I immediately noticed an unusual atmosphere. The employees' gazes were all fixed on one person. Standing at the center of attention was a middle-aged man in a suit. "Are you Derek?" His deep, calm voice reached me. A slim build, neatly groomed mustache, and piercing eyes that seemed to appraise me from head to toe. "Yes, I'm Derek. I've just returned from my overseas assignment today." Straightening my back, I replied with as much composure as I could muster. The man crossed his arms and furrowed his brows. The displeasure on his face was unmistakable. "I'm Cedric. I'm the head of this department. I've heard about your background. Let me see, a graduate of some insignificant public high school. Wasn't it?" Cedric's words caused a murmur among the others. Savoring their reactions, Cedric smirked faintly. "Yes, that's correct." I tried to remain composed, but a storm of emotions churned within me. Despite working for this major company, the fact that I came from a rural public high school was a part of who I was. I wasn't ashamed of it. In fact, I took pride in how far I had come from those humble beginnings. But Cedric's attitude clearly looked down on me. "Interesting. I don't know what you were doing overseas, but I doubt you accomplished much. Can someone with a public school education even understand the words in our marketing materials? Good grief. HR really sent us quite a burden this time. You see, this new business development department is said to be reserved for the company's elite. Yet somehow they saw fit to assign someone as unimpressive as you." Cedric's words were sharp, piercing my heart like thorns. Still, I kept my composure. I'll do my best to contribute. For a moment, Cedric's face registered surprise. But it quickly disappeared, replaced by his usual condescending smirk. Doing your best, huh? I suppose that's all a country bumpkin can say. Very well, I'll have you handle some menial tasks. Filing paperwork. Restocking snacks, those should be within your capabilities. His words brought a tense silence over the entire floor. Understood. I'll give it my all. I responded, my voice unexpectedly steady. Cedric sneered down at me before turning on his heel. All right, then. Let's get to work. I have an important business meeting now. You'll come along as my bag carrier. For a moment, I was taken aback by Cedric's sudden order. But what intrigued me even more was the mention of this unexpected meeting. Yes, understood. I replied, masking my confusion. I just came back from overseas, and suddenly they want me to accompany them to a business meeting without any preparation or explanation? Cedric, indifferent to my unease, strode briskly toward the elevator. I hurried to follow him. Inside the elevator, Cedric finally spoke about the meeting. Our client today is Celestial Springs, a luxury resort in Colorado. We're meeting with its owner, Sarah. The mention of her name sent my heart racing. Sarah? Could it really be her? Memories flooded back in an instant. The kind older girl who supported me during middle school. My first love. What are you standing there for? Get on. Cedric's voice brought me back to myself and I hurriedly got into the elevator. I try desperately to keep my composure so that he doesn't realize how upset I am. As the elevator began its descent, my thoughts churned. A reunion after 5 years. And in a situation like this, how should I face Sarah when I see her again? But a stronger emotion rose within me. Anticipation and joy at the chance to meet her again. And hope that I might finally fulfill a promise I made long ago. Hey, what are you daydreaming about? During the meeting, make sure you take proper notes. That much, at least, should be within your ability. Cedric's cold voice snapped me back to reality. Yes, I'll do it. I answered quietly but with firm determination. Today might be the turning point of my life. I could feel it clearly. I was tasked with driving the company car, gripping the wheel with a mix of nerves and focus. The scenery outside the window gradually shifted from the urban landscape to lush, natural surroundings. As I drove, my thoughts drifted back to Sarah and the Celestial Springs resort where she was likely waiting. It was when I was 16. Autumn of my sophomore year in high school. The season of vibrant fall foliage. I still remember the moment my homeroom teacher, Mr. Waters, grabbed my shoulder with a panicked expression as I entered the classroom. Derek. There's been a call from the hospital, your parents, they've been in an accident. What? My parents had died in a car accident. That very morning, I had just said goodbye to them. The last I saw of them were 2 fleeting images, my father adjusting his hair in the mirror. And my mother, unusually excited as she hurried to prepare for an outing with a friend. I'm dressing up today. Your father's driving me, it's almost like a date, she had said with a shy smile. To which my father, in his usual brusque way, replied, I have work, and you're just going to meet your friend at the station. Their typical playful banter had made me roll my eyes, responding half-heartedly before rushing out myself. Derek, be a good boy. Take care. Those warm parting words now haunted me. Why hadn't I answered properly? After their passing, I was taken in by my uncle and aunt who lived nearby. But what awaited me was far from a nurturing environment. Derek, is dinner ready yet? Did you fold the laundry? We're supporting you, the least you can do is help out. Their words echoed daily. I was burdened with all the household chores, barely finding time to study. One day, I discovered my online banking statement, managed by my uncle, showing a balance of 0. Every cent had been used up by them. Though I had tried to convince myself they were taking care of me, that revelation solidified my resolve. I needed to leave that house as soon as possible. From that day, I decided to forego college and enter the workforce right after high school. I wouldn't rely on anyone anymore. But the price of that decision was steep. Perhaps realizing my intention to leave, or maybe they had never intended to support my education, their treatment of me worsened. Even making my own meals became forbidden. Still, I found ways to survive, nibbling on sausages under the guise of cooking for them, tasting the food as a pretext to eat. But that meager sustenance wasn't enough. And then, Sarah became my savior. "Derek, you must be hungry again, aren't you?" Her gentle voice was always accompanied by a warm plate of aromatic beef stew, rich with wine and tender meat. Sarah, a young owner of the Celestial Springs Resort, had always been kind to me. The resort, close to my family's home, was a frequent getaway for us. During those visits, Sarah, being relatively close in age, treated me like a little brother. After my parents passed, that kindness didn't waver. While most people around me only showed superficial concern, Sarah's kindness was genuine. "Derek, you're doing great, but don't push yourself too hard. You need to eat properly," she'd say, her eyes filled with concern as she looked at my frail figure. Her warmth nearly brought tears to my eyes. "Sarah, thank you." I expressed my deepest gratitude with those words. Sarah gently patted my head. "It's fine. You're like a little brother to me, Derek." Her words slowly thawed the icy layer around my heart. From that day on, I started stopping by Celestial Springs after school, as it was just a short walk from the bus stop near my old home. Despite her busy schedule, Sarah always made time to feed me. Sometimes, she even helped me with my homework. "Derek, what's your dream for the future?" When Sarah asked me this one day, I answered without hesitation. "I want to be like you, someone who can help others." Sarah's expression showed a mix of surprise and joy upon hearing my answer. "I see. But to do that, you need to take care of yourself first." I nodded fervently, her words etching themselves into my heart. Over time, my feelings for Sarah grew into something special. Her kindness, warmth, and strength became precious to me. Was this what people called a first love? With those feelings hidden deep in my chest, I lived my life with determination. Sarah's presence was my hope and my reason to keep going. "Derek, we're almost there." Cedric's voice snapped me back to reality. Through the car window, the familiar mountain ranges came into view. It had been 5 years since I last saw Sarah, just before my overseas assignment. Although this reunion was unexpected, my heart pounded with anticipation. As we pulled up to the entrance of Celestial Springs, the familiar scent of the place wafted through the air. But along with that nostalgic aroma came an undertone of sadness. Stepping inside, I was greeted by the sight of Sarah for the first time in 5 years. "Welcome, everyone from American Travel Solutions Incorporated." The sound of her voice sent my heart racing. Time had only enhanced her beauty. Her lustrous chestnut hair, poised demeanor, and eyes brimming with kindness. She was even more radiant than I remembered. Yet, despite her elegance, there was a faint shadow of fatigue in her gaze. Looking around the facility, it was clear that the vibrant atmosphere of the past was gone. The lobby, once filled with laughter, was now wrapped in silence. A wave of sadness washed over me. Where had the brilliance of this place disappeared to? "This way, please," Sarah said as she guided us to a meeting room. She didn't seem to recognize me. Or was she pretending not to? Once seated in the meeting room, Cedric began to speak. "Sarah, thank you for making time for us today." His tone lacked its usual arrogance, replaced instead by an overly saccharine politeness. "Not at all, I appreciate you coming all this way," Sarah replied courteously, though a subtle hint of wariness was evident in her demeanor. "Actually, our company is planning a large corporate retreat. It would involve a banquet for about 100 people. And we'd like to discuss holding it at Celestial Springs. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise at Cedric's proposal. 100 people. Her voice carried both surprise and a faint glimmer of hope. Yes, that's right. Of course, we'll iron out the details separately. Cedric's gaze began to drift downward from Sarah's face. The moment I noticed his lecherous stare, my eyes widened in disbelief. However, there's one condition. Cedric continued, his eyes fixed intently on Sarah. Before we finalize the banquet arrangements, I'd like you to host me as a guest first. Oh, guest? Sarah's voice quivered with confusion. Her expression clouded with unease. Yes, it's customary to assess the atmosphere of the venue and the quality of the owner's hospitality for such a large booking. I'll act as the guest. And I expect you to entertain me with your utmost dedication, Cedric declared smugly. He leaned forward, closing the distance between himself and Sarah, his behavior becoming increasingly brazen. Sarah, seemingly unaware of Cedric's true intent, hesitated. I clenched my teeth, desperate to intervene. But in my current position, what could I do? I see. Sarah lowered her gaze for a moment. Her subtle gesture revealed the inner turmoil she was battling. I'd be happy to consider it, but could you clarify what kind of hospitality you're expecting? Her voice trembled slightly. Cedric, grinning slyly, moved even closer to her. Oh, nothing complicated. Just be a little kind to me, you understand? Surely. You know what I mean. As he spoke, he reached out toward her delicate hand. Cedric. Physical contact is not only against company policy but also crosses a line of basic human decency. I stood abruptly, my voice firm and unwavering. Cedric raised an eyebrow and sighed dramatically before finally stepping away from Sarah. Good grief. It seems this high school graduate doesn't understand the importance of interpersonal relations. Relieved, Sarah let out a quiet breath, her eyes briefly meeting mine with a hint of gratitude. Well then, Sarah, I look forward to hearing a favorable response, Cedric said, his tone oozing arrogance as he turned sharply to leave, not even touching the hot chocolate she had graciously prepared. As I turn around to head home with Cedric's business bag in my hand, I am suddenly stopped by Sarah. Derek, is that you? You've grown so much. Her gentle words rooted me to the spot. I turned around to see her smiling at me. Sarah. The words caught in my throat. 5 years had passed since we last met. And even in these circumstances, her kind smile remained the same. It's really been a long time, I managed to say, my voice trembling. A mix of joy, nostalgia, and guilt flooded my chest. The boy I knew has grown into such a dependable man, she said, her eyes reflecting warmth and a touch of nostalgia. But I didn't miss the fatigue and anxiety hidden in the depths of her gaze. Looking around the corridor, it was painfully clear how much the resort had changed. The vibrant energy of the past was gone. Sarah, the resort, its state. My words made her expression briefly darken. Yes, things have been tough lately. But I'm doing my best. I just need to work harder, don't I? Sarah. You don't need to pay any attention to what Cedric said earlier. You can refuse such a hospitality request without hesitation. I spoke desperately, driven by a single desire to protect Sarah. Derek. Sarah let out a deep sigh. But her words carried a heavy burden of doubt and inner conflict. Her eyes gazed into the distance. Considering the state of the business, I can't just turn down a major reservation like this. Her voice was strained, almost a whisper. Her words made the harshness of reality painfully clear. I was at a loss for words. Righteousness alone couldn't solve this. The weight of responsibility bearing down on her was immense. I want to protect Sarah and Celestial Springs somehow. This thought grew stronger and stronger in my heart. A few days later, a message from Sarah reached the office. I listened with a sinking heart to what it said. Cedric, Sarah from Celestial Springs has agreed to the hospitality arrangement. Cedric's face broke into a smug grin. Seeing that expression, a surge of anger boiled within me. Well then, it's settled, he said, his voice brimming with triumph. I clenched my fists tightly. Cedric! I called out, summoning every ounce of courage. What is it, Derek? May I join the meeting? Cedric's brow twitched with annoyance. What? You join us? Don't be ridiculous. Having someone like you around would spoil the mood. Know your place. His words were biting, and I gritted my teeth. But I couldn't back down. Throughout the day, I repeatedly approached Cedric, persistently requesting to be present at the meeting. Fine. But keep your mouth shut. He eventually conceded, clearly worn down by my insistence. Thank you. I expressed my gratitude, playing along with my enemy for now, as part of a strategic move to protect what's important. Sarah. I muttered her name under my breath. I couldn't bear the thought of losing that gentle smile. On the day of the meeting, we returned to Celestial Springs. Sarah stood at the entrance, as poised as ever, though I could see a flicker of unease in her eyes. Welcome. She greeted us, her voice carrying a faint tremble. Cedric approached her with a broad smile, his demeanor nauseatingly sweet. The way he looked at her set me on edge. Ah, Sarah, I'm looking forward to having a nice, long chat today, he said in a syrupy tone, reaching out toward her shoulder. The moment his hand nearly touched her, I cleared my throat loudly and stepped in. Excuse me. Could I trouble you for a warm drink? My abrupt interruption made Cedric freeze momentarily. Relief washed over Sarah's face as she quickly responded to my request. Of course, I'll bring it right away. While Sarah stepped away, I kept a vigilant watch. I carefully observed Cedric's every move, ensuring to preempt any inappropriate behavior. Each time Cedric attempted to touch Sarah, I intervened, tripping accidentally, asking loudly about restroom locations, or inquiring about the significance of the decor. My constant interference visibly irked Cedric. As time passed, his frustration grew more evident. Derek! Why are you even here? You're ruining everything. Can't you see I'm not enjoying myself at all? Cedric finally snapped. But I responded calmly. My apologies, but as a fellow employee of American Travel Solutions Incorporated, I am obligated to ensure the proper conduct of business negotiations. My sharp gaze made Cedric falter for a moment, but he quickly scowled, anger distorting his face. Realizing that raising his voice would compromise his position, he clenched his teeth and restrained himself. Fine. That's enough. I don't need any more of this so-called hospitality. With this ignorant fool around, I won't enjoy another drink. A deal's a deal. I'll book the 100-person banquet, Sarah. Cedric spat out the words bitterly. Sarah's face brightened instantly. Really? Thank you so much. Her voice was filled with relief and gratitude, and I, too, felt a sense of relief. This will bring big business to Celestial Springs. It should help management a little. After the reception was over, as I was leaving, Sarah ran up to me and patted me lightly on the back. Her eyes reflected her appreciation. I returned her nod silently. After Cedric returned to the car, I found myself alone with Sarah. The soft light of the evening gently illuminated the wooden deck. Derek, thank you so much. Sarah's voice carried the same warmth as when she had encouraged me all those years ago. It's nothing. I just did what anyone would do. I replied, a little embarrassed. When I glanced at her, she was smiling gently. But having you here gave me such strength. You've always been someone who protects me, Derek. Her words filled me with warmth. So, she remembered. I recalled the time, years ago, when a large spider appeared during one of our family stays. Sarah had been terrified but tried to catch it in the hallway. I had swooped in with a broom and dustpan, ushering the spider safely outside. Or the time I distracted an irate tourist by pretending to trip and hurt myself, diverting their attention from Sarah. The memories brought a smile to my face. You supported me too, Sarah. Without your kindness back then, I wouldn't be who I am today. I thought I saw her eyes glisten slightly at my words. Derek. An indescribable feeling passed between us. A mix of nostalgia and renewal. Sarah. Summoning my courage, I spoke. If it's okay, could we talk again sometime? Like we used to? Her expression softened further. Of course. Anytime you want. Just seeing your face gives me courage. Her words made my heart leap. I'll definitely come back. And, if there's anything I can do for Celestial Springs, I'll do it. Sarah nodded silently, her eyes full of trust. Thank you, Derek. Just knowing you're here gives me the strength to keep going. A gentle light surrounded us. Well, see you soon. We waved at each other, a bit shyly, as we parted ways. Both of us seemed to sense that this reunion might mark a new beginning. A few days later, with the 100-person banquet Cedric had booked approaching, I called Celestial Springs. Hello, this is Celestial Springs. Sarah's voice, coming from the receiver, sounded a little tired. Sarah, it's Derek. Sorry to bother you. Oh, Derek. What's the matter? Her voice brightened slightly. And that small change made me quietly happy. I just wanted to check. How's the preparation going? Is there anything I can help with? I could hear a soft laugh on the other end of the line. Thank you, Derek. You're always so kind. Actually, we're swamped right now with all the orders for the 100-person banquet. Her voice carried both exhaustion and determination. Between food, drinks, and even some new items we've decided to upgrade for this occasion. Everyone's really excited since it's been a while since we've hosted something this big. Hearing this, I felt both relieved and concerned. Please don't overwork yourself. But it's amazing. Your hard work really shines through, Sarah. Thank you. Hearing that from you really gives me the energy to keep going. Her words warmed my heart. Sarah, keep up the great work. I'm rooting for you. Thank you, Derek. I'll call you again soon. Of course. Anytime. I'm always here to support you. Even after hanging up, my thoughts were filled with Sarah. I couldn't be there in person to encourage her, but if this call helped her even a little, I was glad. As I thought about her and the success of Celestial Springs, I sincerely hoped for the best. On the day of the banquet, I couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. Was Sarah okay? Had the preparations gone smoothly? These thoughts kept circling in my mind. As soon as work ended, I headed straight to Celestial Springs. Rain started falling along the way, and the sky turned a dull gray. The closer I got to the resort, the heavier the weight of unease in my chest grew. The road leading to the resort was unusually empty for such a large event. When I arrived at the inn's entrance, I was struck by the sight before me. In the rain, a solitary figure stood still. As I got closer, I realized it was Sarah. Sarah! I rushed toward her, unbothered by the rain soaking me. She stood there, motionless and drenched, looking so forlorn that it pained me to see her like that. Derek! Her voice was faint and trembling. Her eyes glistening with tears. What happened? Why are you out here in the rain? Sarah let out a deep sigh before speaking. I got a call from Cedric. Her words sent a chill through me. He said, the 100-person banquet has been cancelled. Sarah's voice trailed off. What do you mean? They cancelled at the last minute. No explanation, no reason. Her words fueled my rising anger. That man. Perhaps he never intended to hold the banquet in the first place. Or maybe this was his petty revenge for my interference during his so-called hospitality session. Sarah. I was at a loss for words. Standing before me, she looked so hurt, so fragile. The sight of her, drenched in the rain, tightened my chest painfully. What should I do, Derek? We've already stocked so much. Everyone worked so hard to prepare. You've seen how tough things have been for us here at Celestial Springs. That 100-person banquet was like salvation for us. I was so grateful for it. Thinking it might lead to more work from American Travel Solutions Incorporated, or at least provide some much-needed income. But now, with it canceled, our resort might not survive this. Sarah's voice shook with despair. Seeing her like this, I made up my mind. Sarah, leave this to me. Derek, what are you going to do? Just wait. I'll take care of this, I promise. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. As the ringing continued, my heart pounded in my chest. Good evening, my name is Derek. I apologize for calling so suddenly, but I urgently need to speak with Mr. Yates. Sarah stared at me, bewildered. When Mr. Yates answered, I took a deep breath and succinctly explained the situation, laying out my proposal. Understood. Let's take action immediately. Mr. Yates's resolute reply came, bringing a wave of relief. The next hour felt like a dream. Under Mr. Yates's direction, executives from American Travel Solutions Incorporated, key business partners, and even notable public figures began arriving one after another at Celestial Springs. Derek, what's happening? Sarah's eyes were wide with astonishment. The 100-person banquet isn't canceled just yet, Sarah, I said with a reassuring smile. Tears glistened in her eyes. How is this even possible? I arranged it as an impromptu holiday event for American Travel Solutions Incorporated. Mr. Yates was kind enough to help pull it together. Sarah was speechless, nodding silently. Guests continued to arrive, and her staff, initially stunned, quickly adapted to the influx, bustling with activity. The resort sprang to life once more. Derek, thank you so much. Her voice quivered. But this time, it was from joy. I nodded quietly. Knowing I had preserved her smile filled me with a warm sense of fulfillment. The rain ceased, and the skies began to clear. As the banquet went on, filling the resort with lively chatter, I sat across from Mr. Yates in a private lounge. The room, adorned with luxurious furnishings, exuded an air of tension. Minutes later, hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway. There was a knock, and Cedric burst into the room, out of breath. He paused, his eyes widening in surprise as he saw me seated beside Mr. Yates. His shock quickly turned to frustration as he stormed over and grabbed me by the collar. Hey, you! A mere high school graduate from the countryside has no right to sit next to Mr. Yates. I apologize, Mr. Yates. I've been trying to educate him, but as you can see, he lacks common sense and doesn't understand societal norms. Cedric laughed nervously, groveling as he spoke, but Mr. Yates had been glaring at him with a stern expression ever since he entered the room. Cedric, is this how you usually conduct yourself? His voice was icy, and the atmosphere in the room froze instantly. Yes. I'm not sure what you mean. Cedric's voice quivered slightly. Mr. Yates glanced at me before turning his sharp gaze back to Cedric. I had high expectations of you. Cedric, I've heard that you told Sarah to host you in exchange for bringing 100 guests to her luxury resort, Celestial Springs. Is that what you call proper conduct? And then, after receiving the hospitality you demanded, you suddenly canceled the banquet today. What do you have to say for yourself? Cedric's face went pale in an instant, but he quickly tried to recover. That was a business decision. Oh? So coercing hospitality and canceling without notice qualifies as a business decision in your mind? Mr. Yates's sharp retort made Cedric visibly panic. No, that's not what I meant. Cedric stammered and pointed at me. Yes. This incompetent fool here is partly to blame for the cancellation. Mr. Yates, you must be misunderstanding the situation. Misunderstanding? Mr. Yates's voice dropped lower. And what exactly am I misunderstanding? Cedric was at a loss for words. At that moment, I calmly spoke up. Mr. Yates, everything you've heard is true. The inappropriate demands made of Sarah and the discriminatory behavior toward me. Cedric's eyes burned with fury. You have no right to speak here. This is a conversation between me and Mr. Yates. Cedric! Mr. Yates's thunderous voice echoed through the room. Cedric flinched, visibly shrinking in his seat. Do you even know who Derek is? Cedric looked at me in confusion. Well, he's a useless subordinate with only a high school education, as far as I'm aware. I'm astonished by your complete lack of judgment, Cedric. Mr. Yates smirked coldly. Derek is one of our most talented employees, a rising star in our overseas branch, and even a candidate for the next CEO. The color drained from Cedric's face. His eyes widened in disbelief. That can't be. Cedric's voice trembled. Mr. Yates continued. 2 years ago, during his overseas assignment, Derek's innovative ideas and exceptional leadership completely transformed our international operations. I listened quietly as Mr. Yates spoke. Memories of that time flooding back. The overseas branch I had been sent to was in complete disarray. In the United States, American Travel Solutions Incorporated was a household name, attracting customers effortlessly. But in that country, it was just another foreign company, struggling with poor recognition. The branch had no visitors, every marketing plan had failed, and losses continued to mount. The local staff were not only poorly informed but also lacked motivation. Before we could attract people to travel to the US, we needed to rebuild trust and appeal locally. Why don't we start by creating domestic travel plans together? They didn't like my suggestion at first. The staff members stared at me, saying I was adding unnecessary work, but I didn't care and walked around the area. First, getting the raw information into my head. I jotted down notes on hidden restaurants, scenic spots known only to locals, and other hidden gems. As I spread the countless notes across my desk to create travel plans, the local staff, inspired by my enthusiasm, began contributing their own ideas. The travel plans we crafted together started gaining traction among the local community. As American Travel Solutions Incorporated began to be accepted locally, Sarah's words echoed in my mind. Our staple foods are usually bread, but some people enjoy hearty meals like lamb or spicy dishes even in the morning. Sometimes, they crave rice. And don't forget religious considerations. These cultural differences are significant. Food isn't just a necessity, it's an experience. A restaurant locals love might not suit foreign guests and vice versa. Paying attention to these nuances. That's what I call hospitality. Hospitality, huh? Inspired by Sarah's philosophy, I approached my work with a focus on hospitality. When I revised our travel plans to align with local preferences, the results were undeniable. People wanted to visit sites tied to films, music, or sports, explore nature parks, enjoy theme parks, shop, engage in activities, or even tour universities and consider short-term work opportunities. I see, so that's the trend. This approach led to the first successful U.S. travel plan for the overseas branch. Before long, the overseas branch of American Travel Solutions Incorporated became one of the most popular travel companies in the country. ATS is a company in our country, right? The American Travel Solutions Incorporated overseas branch had become so accepted that some local customers began to make such a mistake. The branch, once synonymous with deficits, was now turning a profit. As I recalled those days, Mr. Yates's proud voice brought me back to the present. That achievement earned Derek a direct recommendation from Mr. Youngman, the overseas branch's president, to be the next CEO candidate. Cedric was at a loss for words, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. However, Mr. Yates continued, his expression turning serious. The American headquarters of American Travel Solutions Incorporated, unlike its branches, has been underperforming. That's why I asked Derek to assess the situation here and propose improvements. I exhaled deeply. With everything out in the open, there was no longer a need to hide. Cedric, I began calmly but firmly. I'm not here just to observe. I'm here to revitalize this company and restore the American tourism industry's brilliance. Cedric stared at me, speechless, his eyes a mix of shock, regret, and fear. I kept my position as a CEO candidate under wraps because I wanted to see the unfiltered reality of American Travel Solutions Incorporated. If everyone knew, they might act differently, and I wouldn't get an honest view of the company's state. That's why I chose to work in the new business development department without revealing my identity. Mr. Yates placed a hand on my shoulder. Derek, I apologize for keeping your true position hidden. But because of this, we identified issues we might have missed. And as expected, you've already presented solutions before the problems escalated. You've done a remarkable job. I nodded silently. To stop Cedric's reckless behavior, I had called Mr. Yates and advised, rather than paying cancellation fees, we should urgently gather stakeholders and executives at Celestial Springs. It would serve as a statement that Cedric's tyrannical behavior has no place in the future of American Travel Solutions Incorporated, while also acting as a significant promotional opportunity by gathering stakeholders at Celestial Springs. Furthermore, Celestial Springs, now a hidden gem of a resort, could potentially become an exclusive partner of American Travel Solutions Incorporated. If we acted swiftly, I presented several factors that would benefit American Travel Solutions Incorporated during my phone call with Mr. Yates, and my arguments proved effective. However, my true intention wasn't merely to improve the company's financial performance or reform its culture. My true purpose. I glanced toward Sarah, who was attentively explaining dishes and drinks to the guests with her warm smile. Have I finally repaid her, even just a little? The proposals I presented to Mr. Yates were not lies. They were indeed quick ideas aimed at benefiting American Travel Solutions Incorporated. However, my true purpose was to protect Sarah's smile. When I turned my gaze back to Cedric, he was trembling, wiping sweat from his forehead with shaky hands. I exhaled deeply, solidifying my resolve. Mr. Yates, I said firmly, I believe this company needs fundamental reforms. Mr. Yates nodded, his expression serious. Agreed. Tell me your thoughts. First, we need to purge the company of its corrupt practices. And to do that, we need to make a symbolic gesture. I turned my gaze to Cedric. Unable to meet my eyes, he looked away. Cedric's behavior isn't just an individual problem. It's a product of the company's flawed culture. Unless we take decisive action here, real reform won't begin. Mr. Yates thought deeply for a moment, then slowly nodded. Cedric, he said, his voice cold and final. Your actions have severely damaged the company's reputation, including harassment, discriminatory behavior, and breach of professional conduct. These are utterly unacceptable. Cedric's face grew pale. Therefore, I'm reassigning you to a new overseas branch. You will no longer be part of the new business development department. Cedric collapsed to his knees, crawling toward Mr. Yates in desperation. Mr. Yates, please, I beg you. At least let me stay in the U.S. Please. Cedric pleaded desperately. But Mr. Yates remained calm. What are you so afraid of? Derek, whom you look down on, proved himself overseas and returned triumphant. Think of this as a promotion. You'll take a slight pay cut, but since Nepal, your new assignment, has a lower cost of living than the US, your standard of living may actually improve. Nepal. That far away. Mr. Yates, I only speak English. An overseas assignment isn't possible for me. Cedric tried pathetically to argue, but Mr. Yates shook his head silently. Seeing this, Cedric finally slumped, defeated. Cedric, I said quietly but firmly, you've hurt many people with your actions. Your attitude toward me and your reckless cancellation of the banquet have caused harm. You're aware of this, aren't you? Cedric looked up at me. His eyes filled with regret and fear. In Nepal, learn the warmth of human connection and the value of working earnestly. Academic qualifications mean nothing if you have the will to improve. Cedric didn't respond. Whether he could truly turn over a new leaf remained to be seen, but his accomplishments as a department head were proof of his potential. I chose to believe he'd find a way forward. With Cedric gone, only Mr. Yates and I remained in the room. The weight of the moment hung heavily in the air as Mr. Yates finally spoke. Derek, that was a tough decision. Yes. But I believe it was a necessary step. Mr. Yates nodded deeply. You're right. This is just the beginning of true reform. I looked out the window, where the sounds of the lively banquet reached us. Mr. Yates, I'll make this company and American tourism shine again. I promise. Mr. Yates smiled warmly. I know you will. I have high hopes for you, Derek. That evening, the banquet was a tremendous success. The smiles of everyone gathered at Celestial Springs strengthened my resolve even further. When the last guest had departed, I stood at the entrance of Celestial Springs. The night sky sparkled with stars, and the distant hoot of an owl punctuated the serene silence. Derek, a soft voice called. I turned to see Sarah standing there, illuminated by the moonlight, looking as beautiful as a painting. Sarah. I found myself at a loss for words. The tension of the day melted away, and I suddenly felt shy. Thank you, truly, thank you, Sarah said, her voice trembling with gratitude and emotion. Tears glistened in her eyes. No. I only did what anyone would do, I replied, feeling slightly embarrassed. Sarah shook her head gently. That's not true. Without you, this resort would have been finished. Thanks to you, we now have regular work lined up with American Travel Solutions Incorporated. And the future of Celestial Springs feels much brighter. You've truly grown into someone remarkable, Derek. Her words filled my chest with warmth. But, her voice dropped slightly. Derek, you've become someone so far away from me now, haven't you? Her words took my breath away. Her eyes held both joy and a tinge of sadness. What do you mean? I asked cautiously. Looking into the distance, she continued. You've been thriving overseas, and now you're a candidate for CEO. I heard all about you today from the American Travel Solutions Incorporated people. I realized you've become someone who belongs to a completely different world than mine. Her words constricted my heart. That's not true, I said firmly yet gently. I haven't changed. To you, I'm still the same Derek I was back then. Her eyes widened in surprise. But, yes, my position has changed. But my feelings haven't changed one bit. I stepped closer to her. Sarah, do you remember? I began speaking softly. Do you remember teaching me languages? Her eyes lit up warmly. Of course, I remember. Back then, I stopped by Celestial Springs almost every day. Sarah always prepared a warm meal for me. But it wasn't just that. You told me, Derek, the world is vast, I said, recalling her words. You taught me different languages, ones people actually used in their daily lives. Sarah smiled. It wasn't anything formal or sophisticated. But I remember how passionately you learned. I really enjoyed the time we spent speaking in different languages. The memories of those days came flooding back vividly. The wooden deck of Celestial Springs at sunset. Sitting across from Sarah, sharing dreams, and pretending she was a receptionist while I played a tourist from abroad, practicing various languages. It felt like it was just yesterday. But it wasn't just languages. I continued. You taught me about cultural and value differences, customs, business etiquette. So many things that helped me succeed overseas. Sarah averted her eyes slightly, looking bashful. I learned a lot from teaching you, too. What you taught me shaped who I am today. I said, meeting her gaze with sincerity. When I was working abroad, whenever things got tough or I felt down, I always thought of you. I imagined how hard you must be working, too. I remembered how you used to feed me warm, delicious meals, and that kept me going. Sarah smiled gently. You taught me that respecting other people's cultures is the key to smooth communication, remember? Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. Oh my, you even remembered that? Every word you said left a deep impression on me. I continued, my voice steady. Sarah, you didn't just give me knowledge. You shaped the way I see the world and how I connect with people. You taught me what truly matters. And those lessons became the foundation of my values. A gentle night breeze swept between us. I could see tears glistening in her eyes. Derek. Sarah's voice trembled. I'm so happy to see how much you've grown. And from now on, I said with determination, I'll keep growing, holding on to everything you've taught me. And I hesitated for a moment but then gathered my courage to continue. I want to work with you to make this resort in this town a place the world can admire. Do you know why I went overseas? Sarah's expression shifted to one of slight surprise. For career advancement, maybe? Or because you got transferred? I shook my head slowly. Her eyes widened a little more. No, that's not it. I said firmly but gently. Yes, I was transferred. But the real reason I went overseas was to share your hospitality with the world. And to fulfill a promise I made to you when I was a child. Sarah's face reflected a mix of astonishment and emotion. Oh, Derek. I continued, my tone nostalgic. Back when I was just a kid, you used to play with me every time I stayed at Celestial Springs. Do you remember the promise I made then? I said that when I grew up, I would promote this resort to the world and fill it with guests. And as I learned the languages and cultures you taught me, I started thinking, this incredible place and heartfelt hospitality deserve to be known worldwide. I noticed tears welling in Sarah's eyes. That's why I went abroad to share the greatness of what I believed in. And now, it feels like I can finally fulfill that promise. I took a step closer to her. There was one more feeling I had carried since I was young. One I was now ready to express. And there's another reason. I heard Sarah inhale sharply. I wanted to become someone worthy of you. I said, my voice trembling slightly. But I couldn't hold back now. Because I've wanted to marry you since I was a kid. Sarah's eyes opened wide in shock. Derek. But back when I first realized I liked you, I was still a minor. I wasn't fit to be your partner. I couldn't even take care of myself, let alone think about marriage. That's why I resolved to become someone worthy of you. I wanted to fulfill the promise I made when I was a child before asking you to marry me. I've worked so hard, and now I've finally made it, Sarah. Gently, I took her hand. Sarah, will you marry me? Under the moonlight, tears sparkled on her face. But her lips curved into a gentle smile. Derek. Her voice trembled. This is all so sudden, but I'm so happy. I can't say yes to marriage just yet. It's too soon. Let's take time to get to know each other better. But, Derek, if you're okay with it, I'd like to date you. I'm older than you, though. Are you sure you won't feel disappointed thinking I'm just an old woman? Sarah mumbled anxiously, and I hurriedly shook my head. I'd never think that. You'll always be my beautiful older sister figure, Sarah. You haven't changed a bit, Derek. You're still as kind as ever. Her smile was so endearing that I couldn't resist hugging her. I had always loved only Sarah single-mindedly, so my inexperienced hug was awkward, stiff, and embarrassing. And yet, Sarah laughed happily and gave herself to me. Her warm body heat and nostalgic scent enveloped me. You've grown so much, Derek. The night sky was full of stars. It is as if they are celebrating the beginning of their new life together. A year has passed since that night. One day, a postcard arrived on my desk. And I couldn't hide my surprise when I saw the sender. It was from Cedric. The postcard featured a scenic view of Nepal, and his neat handwriting filled the back. Derek, how are you? I'm working hard here at the Nepal branch. To be honest, at first, I felt demoted and was deeply disheartened. But my time here has profoundly changed my outlook on life. I've realized how foolish I was to judge people based on their education or status. I deeply regret failing to see your true worth. Derek, you're amazing. Now that I'm working in Nepal, I truly understand the magnitude of your accomplishments overseas. I'm truly sorry. Reading his words, I felt a mix of emotions. I was glad to see Cedric's growth, but the memories of the past resurfaced. Still, it all felt like a distant chapter of my life now. Keep working hard, Cedric. I murmured to myself. As for me, life had been going smoothly. After the upheaval, I earned Mr. Yates's trust and was officially named the next CEO candidate for the American headquarters. Every day in the new business development department was challenging but fulfilling. Derek, the new project materials are ready. A fresh-faced employee said as she handed me the documents with a bright smile. Thank you. It's all thanks to the team's hard work. I replied with a smile. Remembering my own early days, I made an effort to warmly support the younger employees. After work, I hurried to Celestial Springs. Standing at the entrance, I was greeted by a familiar yet fresh scent. Welcome home, Derek. Sarah said, her gentle smile lighting up the room. Since that fateful day, we'd started a relationship as a couple. Due to the distance, we have to work remotely and always return home on weekends, but we understand each other's busy schedule and support each other, gradually deepening our relationship. I'm home, Sarah, I said, taking her hand and softly kissing it. How was your day? I answered Sarah's question with a smile. It was fulfilling. I've been really enjoying work lately. But the best part of my day is getting to see you, I said, pulling her into a hug. Her cheeks turned bright red as she buried her face in my chest. Even now, her girlish shyness makes my heart race. In truth, I've been planning to propose formally next Christmas. The ring is already prepared. Derek. Sarah's voice brought me back to the present. Yeah? Let's keep working hard together. I nodded firmly. Of course. With you by my side, I can overcome anything. Holding her hand tightly, I envisioned the bright future ahead of us. The further development of Celestial Springs, the growth of the company, and my new life with Sarah. Everything is going smoothly. But this isn't the end. Rather, it's the beginning of new challenges. With that thought in mind, I looked up at the twilight sky alongside Sarah. Tomorrow is sure to be another wonderful day. Judging others based solely on titles or appearances is wrong. That's something I've come to believe strongly through my experiences working abroad. Academic qualifications are important, yes, but they don't define a person's worth. I've worked relentlessly, and now I've been fortunate enough to grasp this happiness. Living with Sarah, I know we'll face unfair challenges again. Even so, I want to remain flexible yet steadfast in my values. Just as Mr. Yates came to understand me, I'm confident others will, too. As I held Sarah close, my heart swelled with excitement at the thought of the life we'd share together.